Trump haters, I know you're there. You might want to pull over a little bit because Trump's poll numbers are, well, I'm looking for the word. I can't find the word. They are rising. Yeah. After 7 months of declining poll ratings, Trump has turned it around according to two major polls. One, Gallup, finds Trump's approval rating is 38%, an increase by 1 percentage point every week for the last month. Political Morning Consult poll puts Trump's approval rating at 43%, up from 39% the month before. Among Republican voters, his popularity has gone from 73% to 80%. Among independents, it's increased 5 points from 35% to 40%. Unchanged among Democrats, though. And guess what? This is before his Bafo UN speech. And I know a lot of Democrats listen to my show, and I appreciate it. But if you can handle a little bit more, you better get ready because trends are not on your side. I know you think that Trump's winning was a fluke and that the coalition that Obama put together will quickly reassemble and you guys will take back charge in 2020. However, there's some major demographic problems. Article about this in, of all places, the Huffington Post. Headline, The Democratic Party is facing a demographic crisis. And in 2008, Obama beat McCain by 8.54 million votes. In 2012, he beat Romney with 3.48 million votes. So while his victory was comfortable, it represented a 34% decline from 2008 to 2012 and a 59% decline in the size of its popular vote lead. Even if Hillary had won the presidency, it would have marked another decline, down 18% from Obama's 2012 performance. Now, the New York Times exit poll shows long-term trends along gender and race and age and income, and it's nothing but bad news for the Democrats. There's a common misconception that Trump came into power with a bunch of old, white, economically ticked-off men. But according to the exit polling, Trump did worse than Romney among seniors and whites, as I told you before. But he outperformed him among blacks, Asians, Hispanics, and young people. Also, Trump's base. Don't think it's just a bunch of poor people. He won a plurality of every income bracket above $50,000. And while it is true that evangelicals turned out in record numbers to support him, he also won more non-Christian and non-religious voters than any Republican since the 2000 election. And keep in mind, he ran against the first major party female candidate. And while he got a lower share of the female voters than his last three Republican predecessors, he still won over a majority of white women. There does not seem to be any demographic category where the Democrats can say they're improving. I mean, party still pulls in about 90% of the black vote, 2/3 of the Hispanic or Asian vote. But as you know, Trump got about 1/3 more of black voters than did his Republican predecessor. And Republicans don't actually need outright to win or even come close to winning the other demographic categories in order to win. Whites are less than 70% of the electorate. This means Democrats could get 100% of the votes from the other groups combined and still lose. And they've not won the white vote since 1964. Now, to the extent that blacks and Hispanics and Asians stop buying into identity politics, which is what the Democratic Party is selling them, they're even in deeper voodoo. Now, this is not inevitable. And Republicans ought not get cocky. But this is why the Democrats are trying to change the electorate by having porous borders and by pushing for comprehensive immigration reform, because they need more and more people to walk in there like lemmings and pull that lever for the Democratic Party. Otherwise, they cannot win. because they are losing shares among whites. And I'll tell you why. What is their agenda? Tax, tax, and tax more. I played you yesterday Milton Friedman talking about the 4 ways to spend money. You can spend your own money on yourself, in which case you're going to be extremely careful. You can spend your own money on somebody else, in which case you're going to be careful. You can spend somebody else's money on you, in which case you're going to be less careful. You can spend somebody else's money on somebody else, in which case you are least likely to be careful. Barney Frank, angry that he didn't get a $1 discount when he was trying to get on some ferry. Here's what Barney Frank said he wants to do. Remember this?
A lot of things to pay for here, and this second stimulus is being talked about at $300 billion. If, in fact, we were to see something like that move forward, are you going to encourage Senator Obama and Senator McCain to change their tax and spending plans in order to pay for all this?
Well, I do think in this case, let me say, my encouraging will probably have more impact on Senator Obama than Senator McCain.
So do you want to encourage him to pull in his spending plans?
Well, I think at this point there needs to be a focus on an immediate increase in spending, and I think this is a time when deficit fear has to take a second seat. I do think this is a time for a very important kind of dose of Keynesianism. Yes, I believe later on there should be tax increases. Speaking personally, I think there are a lot of very rich people out there whom we can tax at a point down the road.
I wonder how Floyd Mayweather feels about this. I will explain when I come back. 888-971-SAG.
Now to discuss Republican strategist, former official in Rudy Giuliani's administration, Susan Del Percio. Great to have you here with us. And CNN political commentator Paris Denard. Paris, great to see you as well. You know, Susan, what does the president have at stake right now? He's going down to this race tonight. You don't usually see a president jumping into a primary like this.
You don't. And what's interesting with this president in particular, it's probably his ego more than anything else that is at stake right now, because I think he will take this very personally. Plus, they have the setup of, is it a Bannon-Trump showdown? And they have that now all going. And I really don't think it is. I think Alabama's tough to go with an establishment person. I don't think it's necessarily a big Trump loss politically. And yet, in the House, it could be, in the Senate, it could be devastating.
Paris, let's switch gears and talk a little bit about health care. There's the big health care debate on Monday night here on CNN. You've got Graham and Cassidy, the authors, the sponsors of this legislation, right, pitted against Bernie Sanders, the single-payer Medicaid for all guy, and Amy Klobuchar, another Democrat. There are some Democrats that are really worried that this is going to look like single-payer versus Graham Cassidy, not Graham Cassidy versus Obamacare because of Bernie Sanders. What do you make of it?
I think that analysis is very true. Look, at the end of the day, when you have Bernie Sanders, who lost the election, coming out for his plan for single payer, which the Democrats weren't able to get in with the original Obamacare plan, it shows that he seems to be out of touch, and out of touch with where the Senate is trying to go and where the country needs to go, because it didn't pass the smell test on the beginning. Look, these elections have consequences, and the consequences that we see now are that the Republicans are in charge, and they're going to do something. Graham Cassidy is the best bet to repeal and replace Obamacare, because we know Obamacare is not going to work. But at the end of the day, we have to remember Graham Cassidy is going to be something that is different, that the Republicans can get behind, and Bernie Sanders and this single payer option, it seems to be outside of Democrats coming together and saying, let's fix the problems that are there in Obamacare. We all know that they're there, but when you stand on the outside of that and try to push single payer, it seems like you are not in touch with what the American people actually need.
And Susan, for the most part right now, the discussion is between Graham Cassidy and Obamacare. We had Tom Reed, Republican congressman from New York, on with us earlier, and he's caught in the middle of this right now. New York could lose 35% of its federal funding for health care if Graham Cassidy passes. What pressure does that put on the Tom Reeds, the Peter Kings of the world, Republican congressmen from blue states? And there are a lot of them.
There are a lot of them, and it does add a great deal of pressure on it, because they're going to see, what is it going to lead to? Taxes going up in New York even further. So that is a big pressure for these members of the House to deal with. That being said, the problem with Graham Cassidy, is that it is only out there as a PR stunt. It is not about solving the health care problem. And I agree with Paris in that you are looking at setting this debate up with Bernie Sanders as, do you want to overhaul all of our health care system because we're moving it to something that will affect every single American? Or do you want to look at this idea of what's the uninsured Americans who are individual payers who have to buy it themselves, which is only about 10 to 20 million Americans that it would really be affecting. So this debate is very tricky, and I think it's one that is not going, if Graham Cassidy passes, it will not end up being good for the Republicans.
That's interesting. Paris, let me get you on this. Facebook is all over the headlines this morning. They're going to turn over these 3,000 ads bought by these Russian troll farms to Congress. First, they were just giving it to Bob Mueller, special counsel. Now they're giving it to Congress. You've got 2 Democrats authoring this legislation to call on a lot more disclosure for ads that run digitally, right? Just like you see on TV, paid for by X campaign, you know where it comes from, et cetera. So on the heels of that, the president tweets this morning, this is all a big hoax. Goes back to blaming the media for Hillary Clinton. You see it right there. I just wonder what his thinking is. I mean, Bob Mueller doesn't think it's a hoax. Bipartisan congressional committees don't think it's a hoax. Facebook doesn't think it's a hoax because they're changing some of their strategy. Why is the president doing this when his approval numbers are going up?
Well, I think that what the president is trying to do is reinforce to the American people that the part that is a hoax in his mind and the minds of many that support him in this administration is that pitting everything that's related to Russia on Donald J. Trump and on the Trump campaign. What we know from this Facebook revelation is that we don't know the depths of what Russia was doing as it relates to trying to meddle in this election. But we do know that if there is going to be an investigation, it needs to be fair and it needs not focus singularly on one particular campaign. Let's look at the totality of what Russia could have been trying to do. That might include Facebook, which they're saying that it does, and it might include Hillary Clinton's campaign, and it might include other operatives and things, but it's to say that it is only Donald Trump and the Donald Trump campaign is unfair, and I think that's why he calls it a hoax.
This is not what Facebook's doing this.
That's not what's happening. Everyone knows that Russia was involved in with Hillary Clinton hacking into some emails. Everyone knows that the Russians were trying to hack into voter rolls and systems. And yes, they may have played a role in the Donald Trump campaign. No one's questioning, it seems like, was there Russian involvement in the U.S. elections? What Donald Trump should say is, I am proud to have been elected president of the United States, and I will look into any foreign government who's tried to influence our elections. He just would look so much better if he did that.
And again, let's just remind people, it's a special counsel and these bipartisan committees led by Republicans asking for these Facebook ads right now. Susan Del Percio, Paris Denard, great to have you with us. Thanks so much.
Thank you both.
My pleasure.
So this morning...